three birds, right? One of the things that we're trying to observe about the game is how to describe motion inside that game, okay? And so we've looked at things such as speed, velocity, acceleration. Tristan, in your own words, describe what speed is when we describe motion.
Speed is distance divided by time.
Okay, distance divided by time. Does anybody else have a way that they would define speed? Okay, do we agree with Tristan's definition? Okay. All right, so distance over a certain amount of time, right? Okay, so today you're going to be able to relate the mass of an object to its weight. We've already talked about speed. And some of the things we've been looking at in the game are the different types of birds. So we looked at the red bird versus yellow, black, depending on what level and what game you played. You knew that mass had some kind of effect on you being able to knock down the objects in the game, right? So we're actually going to look at relating mass and weight today. You're also going to be able to describe Newton's first law, okay, and relate it to the term inertia. And also we're going to look at the second law, Newton's second law of motion, and relate that back to mass. Okay, so we're going to see how these laws play into inertia and also mass, and then how mass and weight are related inside the game. So let's take a look at our NEARPOD. One of our objectives today was to look at Newton's first law of motion and also talk about how that first law is related to inertia, okay? Because all of this is what we're using to describe motion. So the big question here is, Newton established three laws. We're going to look at two of them today. And why did he do that? What for? So we want to keep that in mind as we're moving through the discussion, okay? So there are a few things that I would like you to write down today so that you can remember them for your project. One of those things is Newton's first law, all right? I kind of want to know what you already know about Newton's laws, and especially the first law, if anything. Tristan, what you got?
An object that's in motion, it stays in motion until reacted until
You got it?
an object that's in motion stays in motion until reacted upon another object.
Very good. Okay. Does anybody else have something to add to that? Okay, so Tristan said an object in motion stays in motion until something else applies a force on it, basically. Okay? If something is at rest, it will stay at rest unless another force acts upon it. That's exactly right. We also call this a law of inertia. So as we sit in our chairs, we go about our daily life, I know we take gravity for granted, unless we fall down, right? And then we really, really notice that it's there. Okay? We normally have a balance of force, or what we call a net zero force. So we're seated, unless somebody or some other force comes and knocks you out of your chair, or you fall out of your chair, or if you were like me in school and you lean back on two legs. The teacher always yelled at me about that, and you kind of overcame the force of that chair, then guess what happens? Gravity takes over and you fall on the ground, okay? So when we don't have those unbalanced forces, we have what we call a net zero force, okay? And inertia is the resistance to that force, okay? But if you overcome it, if you're resting, you will no longer be resting.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So for this law right here, it's like if a car was at like a stop sign or a red light, if the truck like was to hit it, would it be an example of this?
So yeah, it's actually where we're going with that. So you're actually talking about law 2, but I'm not going to get into that quite yet. I want you to think more about the people that are inside of the car.
Okay.
So the car hits the back of another car, rear ends them. Boom.
Like the
Okay.
force of the person?
Right, so the force of them, the mass of that car, the force that comes from that, and then what happens to the people inside the car.
Okay.
So, we look at our diagram. We've got the guy in the car, he's driving along, boom, he gets hit, right? And you can see he's wearing a what?
CC.
A seatbelt. So think about what you just said and what would happen to him if he were not wearing that seatbelt.
He would probably go through the
Fly the
windshield.
window.
Okay, so it depends on the force, on how far he would go. We know that he's gonna at least move forward, move back, depends on the direction of the car when it hits him, okay? That seatbelt helps keep him in place because when an object is at rest, it stays at rest until another force does what?
Right.
Acts upon it, very good, okay? So that seatbelt's helping him out, okay? Same thing if you were to hit something from the front of the car, okay? He's probably gonna go out the front, right?
Yeah.
Unless he has that trusty seatbelt on, so very good. So a minute ago I did mention inertia and I said it was an object's tendency to change its motion, okay? So what I want you to do is kind of jot that down so that you have it for later. Because one of the things we're going to look at when we get into the game, okay, when we start looking in our Angry Birds game, is how all of these things come together. So at what point in the game do we observe Newton's first law? Okay? Oh, football, something we all know about, right? Just wrapped it all up here at school, 3rd round state, yeah? Woo, woo, woo. Okay, so I want to take a look at how Newton's first law is applied in the football game. Okay, so let's take a look at that. You can go ahead and pause. So as you can see in the video, Newton's first law is all over that football field, right? All right, so Dada's our quarterback, okay, and he's dependent on guys when they get ready to, when they snap that ball and he's ready to throw it down the field to somebody, okay. There's sometimes where Dada might have to take the shot himself, correct? He may have to run with it. He's dependent on people to protect him from the folks that want to take him down, okay. So he needs some guys with some mass. Because it's going to take more, remember the more mass you have, the more inertia you have. The harder it's going to be for you to change the position of that person. So we need some big, massive guys to help protect him if he's got to run that ball down the field, okay? And so, you know, it's going to take a lot to knock one of those guys down, all right? So the bigger they are, the harder it is to get them to fall down, all right? So Dada's dependent on people with mass to help protect him in those situations. All right, so on your table, you have a white cup. So there's a white plastic cup there. May have a few things in it. There's a white index card, a piece of sandpaper, and some pennies. So go ahead and take those things out. And your partners are going to work together. Remember that Newton's first law states what, Ladarius?
Motion.
What about motion? Let's see. What you got right here? First law.
Law, motion stays at motion.
Okay, or
Or an object at rest stays at rest.
until what happens?
Until it unbalanced net force acts upon it.
Very good. We agree with that? All right, very good. So object in motion stays in motion, object at rest stays at rest until an unbalanced force acts upon it. Okay? Right now, as the cup sits with the penny on it, what force do we know is applied to that? Gravity. What is gravity being applied to at this time? The cup, the card, the penny. Okay, so I've heard everything, I've heard penny, I've heard cup. Alright, so who thinks it's the card? Okay, who thinks it's the penny? Who thinks it's the cup? Who thinks it's everything? Okay, very good. Alright, so what I want you to do is, you have penny, card, and cup. You're going to try to remove that card from underneath the penny, you're gonna have to do it very quickly, and I want you to make an observation as to what happens. You can slap the card, you just don't want to knock the cup over, okay? You can slap the card, you can jerk the card out from under it, you can flick it, whatever you think is going to work best for your group. And you can talk with your group members if you'd like to before you get started. But I want you to try to remove the card, okay, from the penny without throwing the penny or knocking the cup over. So I want you to go ahead and try that.
Thank you.
I'll do this.
Talk it over with your shoulder partner.
Do you think I should do
The question I just asked you a minute ago, we said that there was a force that was acting on this setup, okay? Gravity. We all agreed with that. So was it on the cup, on the card, or on the penny?
Penny.
Why did y'all say the penny? Tell me why.
Maybe the penny weight more.
Okay, so you're thinking about the mass of the penny versus what?
The mass of the card.
The card, okay?
So, are we talking about gravity here?
We're talking about gravity.
And so whenever you move the card, it immediately goes straight down.
Okay, the penny goes straight down. But did it go straight down before you moved the card?
No.
No. Okay, and they were talking about the mass of the penny, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's remember that. We got store mass of penny, store penny falling into cup when card is removed.
The gravity was acting on the penny because it falls.
It falls. But before that, it didn't go anywhere.
So it was kind of acting on everything. Because before you messed with it, it was just staying still.
Okay, it was just staying still because it had no force on it except for gravity, right? Okay, so what do y'all have to add to this?
Moves first now.
Okay,
Because before we flipped the card, it was at rest.
it was at rest.
And we had to add force to it for it to move.
You put an unbalanced force on it, right? Okay, what was moving? The card or the penny?
Both.
Okay, but which one moves first?
The card.
The card. Okay, the penny wants to sit there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
The card wants to sit there. You went and disturbed it by moving it out from under the penny. Alright, so think about inertia. Inertia is the resistance to motion, right? Or to move. So, penny didn't want to move, did it? Where did it fall? Where? In the cup, which was straight down, right? Okay, mass of the penny was greater than the card. Card moves out from underneath it, penny falls to the cup because of gravity. Okay, so do we see that? No matter what we did, unless we just picked the whole thing up and throw it, we were able to prove Newton's law. Okay, so let's put a spin on this. I want everybody to go ahead, I want you to grab one penny, and I want you to stand up at your seat. So everybody in the group grab a penny, and I want you to stand up in your chair. Okay? I'm going to borrow one for you. Alright, so if you have thick sleeves on, you may have to kind of smooth it out just a little bit. You're going to take your arm, and I want you to put it to where your hand is kind of close to your ear. And what you're going to do is face your palm up toward the ceiling. You're going to place that penny on your elbow, and with the same arm that the penny's resting on, so not the opposite, you're going to try to catch this penny.
Okay.
Alright? Wait,
Well,
from the same arm. Okay? So you have your hand open, you're ready to catch it. You're going to put it on your elbow, and you're going to try to catch that penny with the same hand. Okay? So, on the count of 3. See if I can do it too.
Give me the no mind.
Alright. 1, 2, 3.
Got it.
You got it. Alright, Darius, great.
I did know what. I didn't get mine.
All right, if you did not catch it, if you caught it, go ahead and sit down. If you didn't catch it, let's try it one more time. We're at rest, we rest the penny on our arm, okay? And when we change that motion, all right, so we are changing the motion of the penny, all right? It's obviously resistant to change. It's got the unbalanced force acting upon it. We're able to grab the penny, okay? All right, Ladarius, Tristan, they both told us today that an object at rest stays at rest and an object in motion stays in motion unless an unbalanced force acts upon it. Do we still agree with that, those responses? Okay, very good. I agree with it too, okay? So, I want us to think about the game. We've been observing Angry Birds for a few days now, okay? And I want us to think about Newton's laws in terms of Angry Birds. I want you to take about 30 seconds with the people at your table, and I want you to talk about ways, at least 2 things in the game, 2 instances in that game from what you've observed already, where Newton's laws apply inside the game. So 30 seconds.
Oh, it's like when take the money and put it in the slingshot. First pull it back. She's sitting there, she's saying that she pulled it back.
Justin, what was one of the things that your group talked about?
Like, it is. His first law, like, if you don't pull the slingshot back, the bird just sits on the slingshot and when you pull it back, it moves.
Okay. Did you guys hear what Justin said? Okay, so what do you have to add to that?
Like, if you put a slingshot at E with the bird on flat over the
racks and
yeah,
stuff.
the racks.
Okay, so we've gone from bird resting in a slingshot to putting a force on the slingshot, pulling the bird back so that it can move. And where do we go from there? Let's take a look at this question really quickly. How does Newton's law relate change in motion to a net force? How does Newton's law relate a change in motion to a net force? Think about the conversation that we all just had. Okay? Think about that conversation. Think about what Newton's law is. We already had 2 people we agreed with that said that Newton's first law, when an object in motion stays in motion or object at rest stays at rest until an unbalanced force acts upon it. Okay? Net force. Remember, when you are sitting still, you have 0 net force. Okay, you have inertia because you have mass, and something has to happen in order for that to change. Okay? So far I'm getting some really great responses. Okay, so in relation to how does Newton's law relate change in motion to a net force? Okay, so when you apply a force to something, it moves. Okay, we've had some definitions of Newton's law. That's very good. Okay, lots of things about unbalanced forces. Okay, and transferring energy. So very good. I'm liking what I see. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the Newton's second law. So we want to be able to describe Newton's second law and look at its relationship to mass. Okay, so quickly, and you can all share out, what is mass? In your own words, throw some ideas. What is mass? I don't agree with that, not completely.
Of a space.
Okay, is it space or think about matter? How much matters in an object? I agree with that one. Okay, lots of good answers there, but I agree with Seamus the best. So how much matters in an object? So we're going to look at how do unbalanced forces affect the motion of an object. Okay, we've already kind of talked about that with the Newton's first law, right? So we're going to look at the second law and how that applies. So here's the second law, and I want to go back to Skyla's suggestion or question about the car accident. Okay, Because we said, we looked at first law. Going into this, we kind of knew that that purple ball was more than likely going to knock those dominoes down, right? Okay? So, go ahead and reset your dominoes for a second. And I have a question for y'all. And I want you to, you're going to talk about it with your partner, not necessarily give it to me. So talk about it with your partner for a second. Okay? So I want you to go ahead and get that marble out. Okay, remember you've got the same roller, the same person's going to roll, and he's going to apply the same force, he or she will apply the same force to the dominoes. Okay? It's the ghost. Telling you. This is the question I want you to think about. Do you think that the rolling the marble to the dominoes will have the same effect on the dominoes that the purple ball did? I want you to talk about it. I want you to talk about why you think that before you roll them. What was your prediction versus the marble versus the purple ball? Good. So what was the difference here? Okay. Does it have less weight or does it have less mass? Less mass. Very good. Okay. Alright, so if we could go ahead and let's put our dominoes and the marble balls into the cup. It seems to be the general consensus between the groups. You all guessed that the marble is probably going to not have the same effect on the dominoes, okay? So most of you said it would not knock down the dominoes as easily or at all compared to the purple ball because of its mass being less than the purple ball. I agree with that. One great question came from this, because I kept hearing the term weight. It weighs more. Well, it does. Okay? So let's look at mass and weight, because I heard the term interchangeably. There is a difference between mass and weight. So if you weigh 120 pounds, because we use that as a measurement when we use the English system, right? We use weight. In the metric system, we use kilograms, correct? Okay? So if we weigh 120 pounds on Earth, when we go to the moon, we're not going to weigh as much because we don't have the same gravitational force. Gravity is not the same, okay? And so that's something that changes. The one thing that does not change is our mass, all right? If we are a certain mass on Earth, we're going to have that same mass if we were to go to the moon. The only way that would change is if you left part of yourself behind, okay? So if you, as long as you had everything attached to you, arms and legs and everything, when you left Earth and when you got to the moon, everything was the same, you'd have the same mass, but your weight would change because weight is the amount of gravity pulling on an object, or the force of gravity that's acting on that object, okay? So do y'all see the difference between the two? Okay, very good. Alright, you can go ahead and stop for a second. Okay, so in describing motion, we've talked about two things today. We've been able to relate the mass of an object to its weight. We've also looked at how to describe Newton's first law of motion and also relate that to inertia. So let's talk about that for just a second. Newton's first law of motion, just quickly in your own words, Skyla. Describe Newton's first law of motion.
Okay, force of something, and the force of pushing something that is still making it have motion.
Okay, very good. Anybody have something to add to that? Who agrees with her definition? Okay, and does anybody disagree? All right, very good. So we're looking at putting an unbalanced force on an object to make it move, okay, from a rest position. Okay, inertia, really quickly. Somebody describe inertia. Tristan.
Tendency of an object to resist any change in its motion.
Okay, it's one of our resistance words, right? So the tendency of an object to resist motion. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay, somebody give me an example of where they witnessed inertia today in the lesson. We did 2 activities.
Oh, like when you were rolling the marble like dominoes, they would like, when you rolled the marble, they would try to stay up almost.
Okay, they were trying to stay up because they didn't have enough force on them. Okay, so what about in the first experiment as well?
The sandpaper, if you didn't turn it a little bit, when you went to go pull it out from under the penny, it wouldn't have fell in the cup.
Right, because Penny was trying to stay there, right? Just like it was on the note card, and then you had friction on that as well. So you added something else to it. And then in the second experiment, we were testing out the Newton's second law. We actually observed part of first law in that. So very good examples. All right, and then in the second law of motion, we were able to describe that and also relate that to mass. So, not TJ, Tristan, do you have something to add to those?
So second one
Yes.
is acceleration equals force divided by mass.
Acceleration equals force divided by mass. Do we agree with that? Okay, so give me an example of where we actually saw that today. Where did we see that in the lesson? Newton's second law.
When we did the ball, that was at the wall.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that. So where did you see second law? How did you observe that during that experiment?
We rubbed the ball. Since there was more mass, the like more dominoes.
Okay, so Tristan said the ball, her ball had greater mass, so it knocked more of the dominoes down. Okay, from what I saw, it looked like that happened very easily compared to the marble. All right, so Ladarius, what other things do you have to add to that, if anything? Do you think that he covered it all? Let me ask you this question, because he did a good job of defining that. Is there a difference between mass and weight? Well, there is. There is. So, give me an example of that. Or a scenario where that might apply. Remember our diagram we had on the board? Think about outer space.
When you're on Earth, the weight's different than the moon.
Ah, very good. Weight's different on Earth than the moon. Why?
Oh, good, the gravity.
Gravity is different. Why is gravity different? Anybody tell me that? Think about some of the things we've talked about today. I didn't directly state that when we were discussing it, but there's a difference. Yes, ma'am.
There's no gravity in space.
There's-
Gravity on Earth.
Well, there's gravity depending upon what? Who's playing Angry Birds Space for their project?
Wait, is it how big an object is?
Yeah!
Yeah.
Head! Which is called what?
Mass.
Mass. 1, 2, 3.
Mass.
1, 2, 3. Mass. Very good. Okay. Does anybody have anything to add to the lesson today? Nothing. Okay. So what I'd like for you to do is take out a small little sheet of paper, something that you can put your name on and hand in to me. Can I have lots of you-